What's good? It's Khalil Jamar. Hope that all is well with you guys. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome. If this is not your first time on my channel, welcome back. Today I want to continue talking about what I covered a little bit in my last video about Jamel Brown and the differences between the Sumo Stance deadlift and the conventional stance deadlift. Now, as I mentioned in my last video, there does not seem to be a huge advantage if a person uses one stance over the other. It all really depends on how one's body is built. Nonetheless, there are lifters who do find it more advantageous to use the Sumo Stance deadlift over the conventional stance deadlift, and there are a few reasons as to why. The main reason, though, as I just said, it all depends on how one's body is built, specifically one's bone structure. Now, it can get really complicated in how one is supposed to analyze their bone structure in order to determine which stance is best for them. There's all types of percentages and calculations that can go into it. But to kind of simplify it, if you have shorter arms compared to your torso length, it's probably best that you go with a Sumo Stance deadlift. If it's the opposite and you have longer arms compared to the length of your torso, you probably would find it easier to deadlift with a conventional stance. Now, if it's equal and your arm length matches the length of your torso, you are probably one of the few lucky and genetically blessed lifters, as you can really choose whichever stance you want. At that point, it's really up to you to determine what is more comfortable when you deadlift. Now, why is it easier for people with shorter arms and a longer torso to sumo deadlift over a conventional stance deadlift? Well, let's look at a sumo deadlifter like Taylor Atwood. Taylor Atwood, who is probably top 10, maybe even top 5 pound for pound strongest powerlifters, is a sumo deadlifter. And look at the length of his arms compared to his torso. If he were to deadlift conventionally, it's not to say that he wouldn't be able to deadlift a lot of weight conventionally, but it would probably be a lot harder, because when you deadlift conventionally with shorter arms, the distance you have to pull the weight is a lot further. But when you sumo deadlift with short arms, you're getting closer to the ground, which allows you to shorten that distance. Now, if we look at a conventional deadlifter like John Hack, I wouldn't necessarily say that John Hack's arms are super long, but they do seem to be longer than his torso. And in this case, it would be easier, not necessarily, again, because his arms are super long, but because of the length of his torso. A shorter length in the torso area relative to arm length is going to allow one's spine to handle a lot more force using the conventional deadlift. Now, if we look at somebody like Jamel Brown seems to have an arm length that matches his torso, which is why he's dominant at both the conventional stance deadlift and the sumo stance deadlift. Now, there is another stance that is used. I've only really seen it used, though, by SSJ Bob or Angelo Fertino, and that's the frog or hybrid stance deadlift, which is a combination of both the conventional and sumo deadlift. Now, Bob, he's one of those guys like Browner who is really dominant at multiple stances, but this stance is really used when your spine maybe can't handle the load as much of heavy deadlifts, but your bone structure also puts you at a disadvantage when you use the sumo deadlift. So maybe you're a low bar squatter using the low bar squat technique and using a conventional deadlift technique puts too much stress on your lower back, but you still find it more comfortable to have a closer stance than a wider stance when you deadlift. But guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. If there's anything that I missed, got wrong, or any information that you have to add, definitely leave that in the comment section. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure that you do like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys later.